what we did is we created this double-edged book. So all our stories take place in this shared universe, and there's like a catalyst. There's an event that happens where London is there's kind of like an explosion of evil, if you like, in central London. But before the kind of that, and the coming weeks, there's like this build up where it's kind of leaking out, and people are experiencing things. They're experiencing monsters, and they're experiencing nightmares, and they're experiencing, whispers just behind their ear, very kind of scary stuff. And the closer it gets to the event, this kind of intensifies. So what we wanted to do was write all that down, and so the kind of lead up to it is what's happening is points of villainy, and then there's the main burst of all this evil, and then within like a 24-hour period of that first happening, suddenly these kind of beings of light appear, and that's points of virtue comes in, and they kind of save us. So within 2 days, this devastation, and we're saved, and then everything vanishes, and we're left there broken and kind of going, what happened? And pre-event, we've got what are, you would think of as normal superheroes, costumed, and secret identities and all that kind of stuff. And what happens during the event is a lot of them fall. They either fall, run, or vanish. So what we then looked at was, from the end of the event to date, so we pick up the story a year later. What would happen next? What feasible heroes would you have, and so on and so forth. And so with myself and a wonderful artist called Kyle Wright, we created Messiah, and he was like the first of kind of like a new breed of kind of anti-hero, kind of very unwilling, no secret identity. His powers are very flawed, and you find out that he's actually an escapee from a mysterious kind of organization known as Level 8. So Level 8 had been present during the event. Whether or not they were responsible remains to be seen, but they were around, and they were kidnapping people kind of in the midst of all this kind of terror, and he's one of them. Kind
of like a shadow organization.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And what we decided to do was just have this world building. So I like I said, I managed to meet some wonderful people. So Ellie Cunningham was writing these 2 books with me. Sarah Butcher became our editor, because you had to keep the grammar in check. I'm an overuser of commas. Like, it's unbelievable. I just get notes saying, please, no more commas. And I'm like, sorry.
I'm the same way. I put a comma everywhere. That way I can just keep the sentence going and going and going.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, but it needs breath. That's the way I saw it in my head. So, and she's a wonderful writer and artist as well. And then, we all spoke, and then my friend D.W. Howard, again, another wonderful writer, kind of came on board. And this world building that we've got, so we're all kind of dotted around. Ellie Cunningham is writing her first ever graphic novel, which is based on a story from Points of Villainy, Points of Virtue. One of the characters that she wrote, you know yourself, when you read something and you instantly see that there's something there, there's something extra with it within a character. And I said to her, I was like, this character's yeah, I said, this character's got legs. This storyline has got legs. And I said, I think we should do something with it. And we had a back and forth. And out of the two of us, I'm certainly the comic book fan. She came into it from a writing perspective. I was the geeky boy, of this. But we had a back and forth, and we kind of batted around some ideas. And now she's writing her first graphic novel, which is going to be called Sister Grimm. And then Sarah did the concept design for Sister Grimm as well. And it's like the picture that she did. I don't have it here, unfortunately, but it's so beautiful. What we'll do is I'll get it put up on the site or on our Twitter. And then what we decided to do was take that year between the event and where Messiah picks up and explore it. So Sarah is going to write a book called Tales of POV, and we're taking a character that exists in both areas. And she starts off as like a police detective, and then she, by the end of the year, she's, a kind of inspector. And it follows her for like 12 months of the aftermath of this event leading up till now. And then she actually becomes one of the main characters, which will be our second comic book title. If you can see that, which is Dead of Night, which is about a fall. Again, it was like he was originally one of the heroes before the event, and he was very smiley and I'm a knight, that kind of guy. And then the event destroyed him emotionally, and he's become this kind of medieval killer, So there's a lot in there. And then D.W. Howard is working with me, and we're actually creating character files. They're on our Patreon, where you can actually look at it from a level 8 point of view, where you can actually read character files of people that they kidnapped and experimented on. So we're building that as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is really cool. I like where you're at. Let's go back to the beginning a little bit, though. What is ASAP Comics? Where did that come from? And actually, you know what? Let's start with you. Who is Mr. P A Hayden?
Right. So I started off, just kind of average geeky boy, and I was writing. I had a book out some years ago, and it was just like poetry. I refer to it as mixtape poetry. I'm from a big Irish family, so limericks work, So I did this book to test if people would ever want to read my stuff, and it's quite a niche market to say here's some rhyming poetry, but it worked at the time. And then obviously being a fan as long as I've been of comics, which I figured out the other day is nearly 33 years. I feel very old when I say that. But I still have, the first comic, I ever had. And it was actually my older brother that got me into comics. It was him that kind of handed me a comic to basically go, here's a comic, go away. That kind of, you're annoying the hell out of me. Shoo.
Yeah.
So I said, great. So I took this comic and I've been a fan ever since. And, a lot of us always want to do that thing. We always want to create our own comic and create our own world. And I, would doodle as a child and kind of do all that. I'd go through phases of exceptionally cliche characters, and then obviously if you're reading comics in the 90s, then lots of pockets and lots of big guns, and you go through that phase of 90s Cable, from the X-Men,
some Deadpool, some X-Force.
Oh yeah. Just bazookas on your back, just like you can walk around.
Right.
And I had a character that I'd created some time ago, and he was like half man, half machine, and he kind of got these bionic arms. And at the time, I was like, "This is brilliant!" And he was made of bits, So I just called him Surplus, and I was like, this is great, just genius. And then, you know, when you go, his arms are 5 times the size of his legs. Like there's no feasible way he could move. You know,
Yeah.
he'd lift an arm and tip.
No proportionality.
Yeah, and I was just like, what am I doing? And I went through, you know, the phases of very cliche names as well, and you know, I found some scribbles that I'd made, and it was, you know, 3 people, law, order, and justice, and you know, you do all that kind of stuff, and then a couple of years back, I was kind of looking to maybe see if I could part with some of my comic book collection, because it takes over a lot of space. I have like 10,000 comics and like 500-600 graphic novels, and I don't know why I'm single, and you know, and I thought I need to part with some of this stuff. So I walked into a comic book shop and ended up chatting to this guy and saying about selling some of my comics, and he's like, we don't buy them here. But then he himself expressed an interest in possibly buying some. It turned out the ones that he wanted to buy, I didn't want to share. So, you know, but we kind of formed a friendship off the back of that. And, you know, he mentioned that he was an artist. I said I was a writer. We, you know, long story short, we exchanged details. I got to look at some of his artwork, loved it. We went back and forth with a few things, a few ideas. It was slow moving. We both got full-time jobs. We both, you know, normal life got in the way. You know, so we backed and forth, and we discussed concepts and ideas and so on and so forth. And then, as of January 2020, I lost my day job, and it was just a blessing in disguise. It really was. It was like at the time, you know, I had a few choice words under my breath of the situation.
No, I agree with you. I went through it in March, and I'm kind of the same way. Like, it freed me up. Like, I had nothing else to do. And so what happened was I started like channeling that energy, and now like it's not easy. Some days are harder than others to make enough money to get by, but at the end of the day, like every day I do things I enjoy now. And so as much as it hurt to lose that job, like it's kind of freed me, and I know I can only go up from here, not down.
Exactly.
You know? So
this is it. And I was very, very lucky in the beginning, because what I thought I'd start to do at that time was, even though I was still working with this guy on these ideas and these drawings and so on and so forth, was I thought, I'm going to write content for sites. I'm going to reach out to comic book sites. I'm going to write some, and I reached out to a few. And one of the ones that I reached out to was Comic Crusaders, and I spoke with the guy who runs Comic Crusaders, Al Mega, and he gave me a shot. He didn't know me from anywhere. It's just this random British kid going, hello, you know, and he was like, yeah, you can do some writing for us. And I was very grateful. You know, it was kind of like, you know, trial by fire. I wanted to make sure that I impressed and that I did a good job. I'm still a proud Crusader today, and I have been with them since that time. And
that's awesome.
It's like a family is the best way to describe it. You know, it's a great community, but it's like a family. So my first step was a positive one. So it then gave me that, do you know what, I can do more, and I will do more, and so on and so forth. And so I then started to play around with ideas, and I was like, right, I need to get what's in here, I need to get it out. And I need to make this a legitimate business. And in the end, you know, like you say yourself, you know, it's hard work, and some days you feel like you're banging your head against the wall. But as of August 2020, I was able to register ASAP as a business. And ASAP actually it's actually the first initials of my 3 children, and then me dotted on the end. So I've got two daughters and a son, and it was just a great coincidence that they'd got an A, an S, and an A, and I was like, "Ooh, a P! Yes, done." So it just made sense. And obviously, as a dad, I'm doing this for fun, but also for them as well. I want them to, one, have a great future, and hopefully I can build that for them. But two, also see that it's cool to go and create and go be yourself and just, So I did that, and then we say of August, that's when we went live. And the guy that I'd met in the comic book shop was Kyle, who was the guy that I then went on to do Messiah with. And then I'd already met, because I've known Ellie Cunningham for two years now, and we said that this and the anthologies would be out by November. And it was November 31st. We were like, it's out. So it was by the skin of our teeth, but we made it,
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
It's been a great ride, it's so much fun.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So the points of virtue and points of villainy, that's kind of the inflection point for this universe. Is that it looks like a prose piece. Is it a prose novel?
It is, yeah. The thing
is more like a novella.
Yeah, so it's 16 stories across the two. And what we purposely did, because the thing is, I love comics. I'm not a great artist, but I am a writer, and the two, the two things fit beautifully together. So I figured, if I don't need to have it all comics. Let's get some books in there as well, and all that kind of stuff. And what we purposely did, we have told pretty much no one which of us wrote which story. So there's 16 stories out there, and I think it's one of our favorite games. We're like two mischievous children going when people are going, "Did you write this one?" I'll never tell, and it's really nice because one, it's that great interaction with people. Two, it's nice for us to see that we were as similar as we thought we were in terms of writing, because sometimes we've had family members who haven't been able to kind of pull it apart, so it was a great jumping off point for us.
Yeah, and I really like it because you describe yourself as a writer first. Like,
yes,
you talk about being a comic book fan, but everything that comes up first is always being the writer. And so I think it's really cool that your universe is spawning out of prose, because it's pretty much like pure writing, and it really it reflects the way that you seem to look at yourself. You think of yourself as a writer above all else. You're a writer, a comic book fan, a comic book creator. And so it feels like your universe spawning out of something that's so purely writer driven. I think that's a really great way to kind of build your brand around yourself.
Yeah, thank you, man. I mean, what I like as well is we're now getting in the eye line of some people that would have completely passed us by. And I know people who have had the discussion that comic books isn't literature, or comic books isn't proper reading, and so on and so forth. And I know, obviously, we're not the first company to have both, obviously, but because we launched with the book and then hit them with the comic, then people who would have never have thought to pick up the comic have. I had a friend who ordered a copy of the book, and I think he said he was about 3 stories in, and he said that's it. He said he just leaned across and then ordered a copy of the comic, because he was invested. And what I wanted to do was like be immersive, with people, and pull them in. And one of my favorite, it was a very strange thing to happen, but one of my favorite things to happen was a film company in over here in the UK saw the stuff for Messiah and reached out to me and said, "We really dig this, we'd like to be involved." I was there going, "Wow, what the hell?" This is cool. So I I had a few chats with the founder, wonderful guy called Carlo Kea, and it's their company's called Stone Productions, and we had a few chats and we had a few back and forths, and he said, look, I'm interested in making something, in filming something, and so after we chatted, I'd got this character called Person, and it's spelled Purson, after a fable, a demon known as Person. And I like Person slotted perfectly in with my Dead of Night arc, because the Dead of Night is actually, his lineage goes all the way back to medieval times. So I made Person an enemy of the family rather than just the one hero. So what we did is, as I say, we had some back and forth. I played around with the idea of this character, and then last year we signed a 10 web episode deal to get it made. Obviously, the pandemic slowed that down a little bit, but I wrote the 10 episodes,
Wow.
and it's going to begin. So what I love is we've got books, comics, and media. So we're off to a great start, and I'm very proud.
Yeah, very all encompassing. That's awesome. How long are the web series episodes?
They're only about 10 minutes long each.
Okay,
We
that's
didn't
perfect.
we didn't want to over push it, and we figured if we could put it out as the episodes, and then if it was there, we could pull it back and put it in as one, and then so then we've got
Build
like a feature then.
Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with the Bat in the Sun videos.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like I can see like the Bloodshot stuff and all of that, like these little like 8 to 10 minute episodes, just like they're perfect for like the web,
Yeah, exactly. It's in perfectly digestible in terms of size and time. But yeah, we've done it as one. We've run it as one continuous story, and again, to do that, to make it immersive and world building, you get to see parts of the event. It's referenced. You get to see characters that were affected by it, and then the main character that's from Dead of Night is referenced as well. So it's kind of like my ASAP, universe is growing. So it's a cool feeling, but at the same time, it's like,
no doubt.
Yeah,
it's got to be crazy to have to start this out, and then it's starting to grow so quickly. I mean, you have the book that kind of explains the universe, and then Messiah is already out, and Dead of Night's on its way, right?
Yeah. So what we did is Dead of Night. We've actually leaked some of the pages onto our Patreon to give people a taste of what's coming. So our Patreon consists of things like pages for Dead of Night, character files for level 8, information on Tales of POV about what's happening with that Heather character, snippets from Sister Grimm. So on our Patreon, people can find all that information. So all they've got to do, they can just check us out on Twitter. It's it's all on there, or our social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess like what kind of process do you use to kind of like keep track of your universe,
Well, oddly, we are going over that later today, because we realised that obviously this dates back further than we thought. When I first came up with the character for Dead of Night, so before the event, he was just known as Sir Robert Ward, and my older brother's he's very good at, he's more analytical than me. So I spoke to him and said, can you do me a favor? Can you run a bit of a lineage? Can you do a bit of a history for him? And then we have the timeline of the event and everything like that, but we realized we need to put all this together. So we're actually expanding our timeline And you go, oh no, that means we've got to write all these stories. Okay. But yeah, so
Hey,
I've
it's
got
better to
a
have too many ideas.
yeah. But so what we're doing today is me and Ellie Cunningham are going over the timeline for points of villainy, and then I can attach it to the other timeline and then filter back. And that's how we kind of keep track, and just make sure, we'll just scroll across. It's like a big Excel spreadsheet, basically. It's done that way. But we also we constantly chatting. We're constantly going over things. Of the kind of four of us, everyone's on the same. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing. What I love about it as well is sometimes we'll have like just a Zoom meeting, and we'll just have a chat, and it's nice and casual, and then we'll just start bouncing around ideas. And I love that process, because the three people there, they've got some there's so many incredible ideas. Their minds are so beautiful. And sometimes you throw an idea out and you can just sit back in awe and you just watch them bat it round, and you just kind of go, this is great. And I love that about the creative process.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like whenever you get that like seed of an idea, and then you start to think about it, and it just kind of like starts to spiral out, and like it can connect here, it can do this, it can do that, and before you know it, you've built this whole like wall of red string, but it all makes sense in some way.
No, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to do, and what I love to see was, like I said, when Sister Grimm was created, for example, and placed in this world, I loved that because everything up to that point had pretty much come from my head. Visually, Kyle had done a lot of the visuals, but pretty much everything from that point. And then Kyle had also created a character that then went into the book for points of villainy, points of virtue, called Tailwind, and it was one of our old guard as well. And it's so lovely when people get your vision. That's not meant to sound as pretentious as it's. I had a vision. It's but when they start putting in, and you just kind of go, oh wow, I'm honored.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine, because I mean, just to like have a good idea and the amount of work that goes into like fleshing that idea out, to have somebody else come along and be able to see like you said, like your vision, they can see that you've created this world, and it's gratifying in the sense that it kind of like confirms to you that there's something here, that all of this that you're doing is not just something you like, that there's potential for other people to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, no, you 100% agree with what you just said. It was so nice to see that, and then when you get feedback off people who have read the book, and feedback for people who have bought the comic. As a comic book fan, one of my favorite moments of this was there was a chap who, at the time when he first ordered it, I thought nothing of it, but he'd ordered 2 copies of Messiah way back when, and I was just like, cool, but we got them shipped out and got them sent. And what I didn't know was he owned a comic book shop in LA, and what he wanted to do was just pop them on the shelf and see what people made of them, and see what people thought of them. And we got a message. It was via DW Howard, because it's a comic book shop in his vicinity. And what had happened was both had sold out the day they were put out, and one was actually sold out of the guy's hand as he was putting it on the shelf.
Wow.
And it's, to me, because it's like, you could turn around and say, well, it's only 2. At the time, I mean, to sell out of his hand, I was so touched. I was so like, I got a little bit emotional. I was like, oh my God, because these people didn't know me. They didn't see any of the social media. They saw the cover, they flicked through, and they took it and they went. So, that was for me, that was the start of something then.
Yeah, that's awesome. is that a common thing over there? Because like I live in Houston. There's 6.5 million people here. We have like 6 comic book shops, and it's hard enough to like get your book into their shop as like somebody that lives and shops there, you know. And
Mm.
if you do, like for people to walk in and pick up a local book is pretty rare. So like, is that something that's more common over there on the other side?
Oh no, this happened in Los Angeles.
Oh, in LA? Oh
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, yeah, it didn't happen over here. No, it was in Los Angeles. Yeah, yeah. As I say, it was to me, it was just an order, and I was just,
Yeah,
thanks
that's
very much,
really
thanks for the order.
impressive.
Yeah, but yeah, so it was a very cool feeling. I mean, it's a cool feeling for any sale, but to know that
Oh yeah,
one
of
went
course.
straight out of the guy's hand was, I remember phoning Kyle, and just kind of go, dude, I must have shouted so loudly down his ear roll. And he's like, what? And then I told him, and he's like, holy wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was very cool. And as I say, we just, because of good people and the creative people that I'm surrounded with, it's just growing. And
Yeah.
the plans that we have for 2021 have just rocketed. As I say, we've
Yeah.
got the stuff with Person. We want to release Dead of Night. People are already asking for Messiah issue 2, but we want to, again, due to pandemic, a lot of places are closed, so I'd like to try and get it into more places before we start throwing issue 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out there.
Yeah.
Let's really show people issue 1 first.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the book for Sarah, the graphic novel for Ellie Cunningham, the Level 8 files, with me and D.W. Howard. And then I'm going to be writing, and it's weird because obviously everything else I've done has been collaborative. I'm actually going
Yeah.
back to writing a book on my own, which will be the prequel to Points of Villainy, Points of Virtue.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
So it's going to be a bit weird because I'm so used to being on a call or on a phone, and this time I'm going to be on a laptop on my own, kind of going, guys. But I'll end up just batting it. So I'll do chuck them a chapter at a time and say,
Yeah.
give
Well,
it
that's
give it a
awesome.
look.
I mean, it sounds like such a robust universe, and it's still in its infancy, you know.
Mm,
And that's really cool that you got other collaborators there that are bringing in ideas to sprinkle into your universe.
yeah.
Um, what is your creative process like for like scripting, and how do you work with your artist? Do you script a lot of the visuals, or do you leave that up to your artist?
Um, with me and Kyle, we've got a very good um relationship. As in, we one of the things that I love the most about the people that I work with, and again, extension of that, things like Comic Crusaders, is humor and banter. I'm all for smiling while you get it done. You know, yourself, if you've lost a job and that job was actually a shackle, and you've got to be serious, and you've got to be. Yeah, I used to have to wear suits, and less of the beard, please, and
Mm-hmm.
I no thanks. I'd rather have t-shirt, tattoos. That's more me.
Yeah.
Um, so it was humor, and I'd give Kyle. I mean, the Messiah character is the only one that's actually unchanged. I drew a picture. Oh God, like 6 years ago, with all these different characters I wanted, and he just happened to be one of them. And he was very striking because it's obviously the mummy-esque looking face and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent that picture to Kyle, and he literally just did his version of that. With other characters, we got a character called Foe, and we went through a lot with Foe, back and forth, and we went from kind of kabuki looking masks to it being quite simplistic in the end. I've got a picture of Foe actually. So there's Foe. There it is.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted it to be very simplistic, and in the end, black and white and just a small frame around here was just the way to go. It was ideal. But yeah, humor was always key for me. So if there was anything that was or wasn't working, then we were able to deal with it by laughing about it. Or I remember Kyle had sent me some, and he'd go, does this look like ridiculous? Does it look stupid? Does it look like someone's been drinking too heavily? Because I'm quite tired. And we just kind of deal with it that way. And then when I asked Ellie Cunningham for a list of how she saw Sister Grimm in her head, so I could very sneakily give that list to Sarah Butcher, so we could surprise LA and go, there is the concept of your character, because it's great to visualize. And she gave me this list, and she gave me pictures, and she gave me this, that, and the other, and you go, Jesus. She went, is that enough? And I was like, it's enough for 24 concept characters that are separate. It's like we're going shopping. There's plenty. It's okay. Stop. But it was beautiful, because then we were able to really get like a detailed description there. So yeah, I think process wise, there's so much out there. I mean, we're all paying some form of homage to the characters that the creators that came before us. I'm a fan of a team called The Authority, which are in Wildstorm Comics, and obviously DC then have them. And the Midnighter.
Oh man, that's crazy you bring that up. I just found out about Midnighter.
Really? Oh, I love that character.
Like, I've heard the name for years, but I've never really looked into him. And then I think it was Action Comics or Superman or something, just like this last week came out, and the backup story was like this awesome Midnighter story, but it's just a tease, and I was like, what is this? So I have like the DC app and stuff, so I went back and I've started like looking up stuff about Midnighter. I'm like, this character sounds really cool. Like,
so good. So good. He said The Authority were just I'd heard of them, and then I used to kind of I used to have a friend called Darren, and it was great. I'd just go to his with two grown men. I turned to my partner at the time. I'm going out. She's going, are you going to read comics? Yeah. and off I'd skip. We're two grown men, and we're sat there reading this stuff. And then he bought like a load of books back he'd been to London, and The Authority was just sat there on top, and it was just a single issue. And I was happy to pick it up, and I was like, oh, this artwork's beautiful, and I started reading more, and then I started to buy the graphic novels, and then I became like painfully addicted to the characters. Midnighter, Apollo, Jenny Sparks, Jack Hawksmoor, the Engineer. The storylines were just gritty, and it was Brian Hitch as well, and I love them. And certainly there's characters that I've created that I've gone, it's a little bit on the nose on that. I think I need to just whoop.
Change some things around.
yeah. I need to change everything. Okay, I've just drawn a picture of Midnighter is what I've done. And I wanted Foe to be that kind of character, and then I realised that Foe was better suited with just like a smidge more humour than that. One of the things that I wanted to do with Foe was I wanted to make a character that anyone can cosplay no matter what they're wearing. And one of the things about Foe is he doesn't have a costume per se, but he never takes that mask off. The mask is permanent, but the clothes change. And in Messiah, where he debuts, you first see him in like a hoodie and all that kind of stuff, and very much looking like, you know, Messiah. And in that issue, he also then steals this villain's suit, which is when you see him in a suit at the end. You know, he fights this villain, and then he kind of goes, "Nice suit," and then in the next thing you see him, he's wearing the suit. And I just love that idea, and it was like, you know, I'd love the idea that they're fighting and he gets thrown through a shop window and then looks and there's like a tuxedo and it's like, I'm having that, you know. And then the next time you see him, and I just thought it'd be great, you know. The dreamer in my head was like, one day like walking into like a big Comic-Con and then just random foam masks everywhere and just like, yes,
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
yeah, I love that concept. That's awesome because he can be like, you know, it gives him the personality trait of being kind of like one human and also, you know, like I guess like into fashion and stuff. You know, not that he has to be like a fashionista, but the fact that he's interested in clothing, because you see so much animation and so many comics where the characters are constantly wearing the same clothes and they just have a closet full of white shirts. You know, so it's nice to see a more organic kind of feel to a character because they change clothes, and yet you were able to keep something that could become iconic, you know, and sticks with the character to make them memorable, because that's half the point of the costume, is so people know who they are, you know.
That's it. It's that one identifying mark, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I actually got that strangely from Frank Miller's Batman Year One. So you know the scene where he first goes out and he's like dressed as the army vet.
Oh yeah.
And he puts that scar on his face and he was like, one identifiable mark. And it was that made me go, oh, one identifiable mark is that mask. The rest changes, you know. So he doesn't, like I say, there's no emblem or, you know, because with the characters post event, there's very, very few costumes. There's very, very few capes, as it were. Whereas before that, it was very like that. And then obviously, because it takes place in London, I've given it a very British spin. So I've worked quite hard to look at British and Celtic and you know, as me from an Irish family, you know, Irish folklore and fables, and include all that in there, and you know, look at the surrounding, you know, because there's like a wealth of things that you blink and you'd miss, you know? So
yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome because, like, you know, obviously the States has quite a bit of history now, but like a lot of the myth and lore that you can dig into from the extremely long history of some other places around the globe, you know, like it makes those stories so rich and interesting, you know.
Yeah, there's so many beautiful stories and beautiful characters that, as you know, you can just put a slight little tweak on. Like I say, Person was a random, you know, demon, and you know, with a little tweak, he's become a character that I kind of ended up kind of loving. You know, I can't wait for people to see Person, because he's going to be a character he's got, you know, so many levels, and then there's this whole story of his change in the world due to the event. It's got a lot to answer for that event, you know.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I look on the website, the cover image you have here for Dead of Night. Like, he is such a cool looking character. I'm excited to find out more about him. This big giant sword that's next to him, he looks I mean, I hesitate to compare him, but he kind of looks Shredder, like kind of like Shredder, but with a little more like Knight and a less Japanese influence, you know.
Yeah, he because Kyle came up with the concept, and then KJ did the cover, and Pavith did the colors for that cover. What we wanted to do was, because we have this lineage, so you have all these histories of his family, so you have all their armor, and it's on display, and that was the
Mhm.
beauty of it. So pre-event, he'd got a big display in London, and his family was massively celebrated. And then post-event, when he loses his mind, as it were, he then goes through and starts grabbing bits of armor from his ancestors, and what he actually was wearing is like a mishmash of all this stuff. And we wanted to give him originally we wanted to give him a mix of military and medieval, but then we realized it just looked a little bit off, so we've made it more medieval, and then there's going to be military aspects in there. So in one of the first scenes of his, you kind of see him tooling up, as it were, and he's getting a sword, and he's got an axe, and he's got a mace, and you kind of go, and then in the next thing, you just see him loading a gun. You never see, where he puts the gun, because but it's almost like, if this doesn't work, if this sword doesn't work, I'm gonna shoot you,
Yeah.
So, and as I say, he's become very very dangerous now, and he's kind of turned his back on all that smiles and waves.
Where does all this take place? Like, is it set in like a current setting, or is this taking place across the spectrum, or?
No, so Dead of Night takes place at the same time as Messiah. It's all present day, pretty much.
Okay.
So in our kind of continuity, points of villainy, points of virtue happened last year or so. Messiah and Dead of Night are present day. Sister Grimm will be more or less present day, though we will filter her backstory slightly, because we want to play with that kind of missing 12 months. So as we are kind of filtering it out to people, we're giving you a little bit of everything. It's almost like we're giving you Empire Strikes Back at the same time as Revenge of the Sith, and you can pick it up wherever and carry on wherever. There's no awesome. Straight line.
Yeah, which is great, because it gives the readers the freedom to bounce around your universe.
Yeah,
if everything felt so linear, it would block people out, because you got all these completionists. They're like, I have to read everything,
Yeah.
And by kind of making it very flexible and independent, but still coexisting, it gives the opportunity to jump in wherever the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, and it's like, my mind, I mean, speaking for myself, my mind doesn't work that way. My mind, I refer to my mind as being like a magpie. I'll try and concentrate on one thing, but then it sees something shiny over here and goes, ooh, and then goes that way. And I'm kind of going, come back. And it just, it's like, no. So, at the same time as I was writing the POV with Ellie Cunningham, I was also finalizing the stuff for Messiah. And it was that thing that if my mind is scatty, then it's going to come out, layered. Layered is a better word than scatty. It's going to come out. It's going to come out layered to people. But as you say, it's the best way. There's no point there that they can't pick it up.
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally understand what you mean, though, because my brain is the same way. The more complicated something is, the easier it is for me to understand. The more layers, the more that's going on, the easier it is for me to pick it apart, versus something that's very simple. You think it would be easy for me to understand that, but simple things seem very complicated to me, and complicated things, I just see all the little pieces and it makes sense, so.
Yeah, and it's like, because we're comic book fans, it's like trying to. I've done it before with my daughters in particular, because I describe it as I've raised them well. They're very geeky, and my son is 7, and now he's a massive fan of superheroes and stuff like that. But I once sat there with my eldest daughter and explained that Cable was Cyclops' son, even though he was older than him, and he was born in a future where they transported, and it's Madeline Pryor's his mom, but not Jean Grey. And then there's Strife, who is also his clone. And then there's Nate from the Age of Apocalypse. And my daughter's going, wait. And I'm going, then there's Rachel Summers, which is the daughter, and she's going, I'm going to get a pad and a pen, you know. So I think as comic book fans, it's, you know, and you know, the other one as well is like Doctor Who, you know. Both my girls love Doctor Who, and then, you know, you try to explain certain things to people about it, and you kind of, it's like you said earlier with the red string, you know. And then you're going, and then they're related to them, and then they went out for a cappuccino with them, and then that was Thursday. And then you kind of, it kind of ends up looking like a wall that would belong to the Question from DC. You know, and you go, makes perfect sense, you know.
Makes perfect sense,
yeah. And that's, as geeks, I think that's the way that we're built. You know, there's all these worlds, and they're great, fantastic worlds, and we are, you know, because I love the escapism, you know, of comics, and that's why I wanted to make this immersive for people. So yeah, man, it's cool.
Yeah, it sounds really cool, man. I love the idea of this universe. It's like set in a present time, and it's set in a present world. And so that really allows a good entry point for people. You know, it sounds like something kind of reminds me of like Marvel, you know, like the universe outside your window, you know. It's something very relatable that you can easily slip into, you know. So this sounds great, man. Like, you have so much going on. It sounds like people are really taking notice and taking interest. And like I said, I feel like your brand really reflects how you describe yourself. You know, it starts with this prose, and then you really get into the comics. And the fact that you're building a universe very comic book style is really impressive, man. It looks like you're doing a lot.
Thank you very much, man. No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
When is what is it? The Dead of Night. When does that come out?
So at the moment, we're still, as I say, we're still putting it through our Patreon. We want to get a bit more content out there, and say to people, you know, check it out, and get a feel, you know, get people to get a feel for it, and get some feedback on it. Because what I didn't want to do was have that thing where there's little points sometimes. You know, you can go, I've done this one, I've done this one, I've done this one, I've done this one, and you go, who's seen it? And you go, no one. And then you kind of go, well, what was the point? And sometimes you can overload people. It's like, I liken it to, you know, when you've got too many channels on the TV, so you sit there doing this, and there's nothing to watch. But if you've got 4 or 5 channels, you're going to sit and you're going to pick something. And I just thought, if we give people the option of the Patreon and have a look at it, because it's, you know, it's beautiful artwork from KJ, and Pavis C, you know, he colors it so beautifully. I mean, the cover's testament to both. You know, very lucky. You know, I was very blessed with that. And you know, I wrote it after writing Messiah, so I managed to tie in as much as I could. So once we get a bit more feedback, he will be out this year. It's just a matter of when, you know. Now the world is starting to open back up a bit. You know, we're going to reach out to more independent comic book shops. We're going to reach out to more book shops as well, because, you know, as you say, we've got pros, and start to get it on the shelves more. You know, as I say, we've been very lucky. The site has worked very well for us, and obviously, you know, we're on Kindle as well for both. So we were very lucky in that sense. But I want to see it on more shelves. I want to see it in more independent shops. So that's the aim for now. But what we will be doing soon is we're going to release an almost like an ASAP calendar, and go, you know, by October 2021, this will be out. By December 20, this will be out. So that's our plan. And then we do have, I can't announce it yet, but we do have some other things coming as well. So all I say to people is, you know, give us a follow, you know, watch this space, because we've got, you know, 2 or 3 more surprises, a couple of aces up our sleeves, as it were.
Yeah. So where can people get this book? Is it available through your website, or I know you said it was on Kindle.
Yeah, so you can get it on Kindle. Here's the weird thing. So when we put it on Amazon, so we went through to get it on Amazon for print as well. They sent me a copy, which I have just over there. They sent me a copy of the proof, and it was like this book, except it had got, that line across saying you cannot, not for resale. It was just a proof copy. And I was like, it's perfect. This is great. This is fabulous. So I then went back online and approved it, and they went, no. And I was like, what? And they went, no, we can't make this. And I was like, no. I have literal proof with the word proof that you can. and then they were like, no, we can't, because half of it's upside down. It's like, I know. On the proof that you sent me, half of it is still upside down. Yeah. And then they said, well, no, we can't make it. So I ended up having a phone call. I ended up phoning them. Like I was on the phone with them. I was like, this is ridiculous. Come on. I really wanted to just take pictures of me with the proof.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, we can't print it. Like the Kindle, yeah, it's fine, because we had to layer it different for the Kindle. We couldn't do upside down. You can't turn your Kindle over. And the whole point of the book is that it flips, because what you will see is, so you see that V, or it looks like a V, and then you've got it in black there and in white there, but it's actually one whole pendant. You see, so it's one whole thing, and it's part of the point of the book is that it flips upside down. And they were like, we can't print it. So I thought, right, fine. So they still handle the Kindle side of things, but you can get the book at Amazon, at asapcomicsuk.com, and we ship globally, so it's fine. So you can still get the print copies there. But yeah, so the print copies on the site, and then you can get us on Kindle on Amazon.
Okay, awesome.
So, yeah, but it was very strange with Amazon on that one. It was
yeah,
very
that's really weird
situation.
Because I mean, it's not like you're asking a human to draw upside down over and over again. Like it's just data. Like the printer doesn't know if the picture's upside down or not. So like I don't see what the issue is. That's weird.
No, it was so bizarre. I mean, the guy I spoke to was lovely, and he was like, I'm really sorry that you're being told this, but yeah, there's nothing I can do. But it was fair enough. It is what it is. So we adapted to it. But do you know what? It hasn't affected anything. The printers that we use have global offices. So if I get orders in Canada or America or anything, it's easy. So I was very lucky to find the printers that we use. But yeah, all orders for print copies through our site. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Wow. So where can people keep up with you and ASAP Comics on the web?
So we are on Twitter, and it's just at ASAP Comics UK. Instagram, you'll very rarely see this mush on Instagram. It's going to be character files and covers and so on and so forth. I'm about as photogenic as a foot. I tend to stay off the pictures. I'll give images instead. We do have a Facebook page as well. That's usually connected to our Instagram. And then just give us a Google, because we've got other little elements out there, LinkedIn and things like that. So
phenomenal, man. That sounds great. I'm really excited for what you're doing here, and I'm definitely gonna have to check out Messiah, and I'm pretty excited to check out this Dead of Night. That cover is so cool, man.
Yeah, it's really nice, isn't it? Yeah, when there's a video on our Instagram of like the filmed process of all the colors as Paris was putting them on, and it's just it takes obviously what was already a beautiful image anyway that KJ did, and then you watch this color process happen. And then right at the end, because obviously you've got the shine on the armor and just these little glints of light. I was blown away when I saw that. you know.
No doubt. Yeah. It's really cool to see like process videos like that, because
Yeah, they're
you see
great,
it all
man.
come together, and you tend to find things that you don't see in the full image, just like the artist will obsess over this tiny little thing that nobody's going to notice. It's the
Yeah,
same thing in the process. Like whatever you see that happen, then all of a sudden now you can't not see all those little elements.
it's incredible. Like I'm very envious of that ability. I can draw ish, you know. Um, when I sent my picture to Kyle, he was able to kind of pull out what he needed from it, but it wasn't anything that I would ever say, yeah, put that on the cover. That'd be great. No, never.
Yeah.
I think there is on our Instagram, there's a side by side of the drawing that I did. And for some unknown reason, like Messiah almost looked like a cyclops because his eye looks really big. And then there's the one, that Kyle did next to it, which is just beautiful, and just puts me to shame like that.
That's awesome.
So it's cool, man.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you, and
Likewise, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna direct people your way because I'm excited for this universe you're building.
Thank you, dude. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for taking the time.